Greetings, this is Dr. Paul Karitsis, and the following narrative also comes from ancient Egypt. It's a very, very beautiful one called Isis and the Sun God's Secret Name, dedicated to the Great Mother archetype, which in Egypt was encapsulated by the divine triad of Nut, Hathor, and Isis, those three goddesses. So, Isis and the Sun God's Secret Name. The ubiquitous Ra, the mightiest of the Egyptian deities, was known throughout the kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt by many names, by innumerable names. All were common knowledge except one, which he kept hidden from the conscious awareness of every living creature. And what was his principal motivation for shrouding it? Well, knowledge of that name enabled the beholder uninhibited powers in catabolizing, or metabolizing if you like, the creative processes responsible for the universe, and even altering the trajectory of fate. As the sole inheritor of this name, Ra could operate in weird and wonderful ways, over and above the mental and physical limitations of everyone else. Nobody knew this name, at least not until a cable of niggling curiosity wrapped itself around the great, mighty Isis, who henceforth made it her life's purpose to unearth it from the deep recesses of Ra's voluminous mind. Of course, Isis, as we know, was the incarnation of justice, of motherhood and providence, among other things, but she was also resolute and cunning when it came to obtaining what she wanted. Nobody understood this better than the evil Seth, who had been duped by the goddess into conceding inequitable intent in his own reckonings with her son Horus through the analogy of a cleverly spun tale. Assuming the guise of a femme fatale, she had confronted Seth on an island and had told him that a stranger had entered her life right after the unprecedented death of her husband, intent on stealing domestic possessions and banishing her young son from the household. Without thinking, Seth reproached the foreigner for the same injustice which he himself was now trying to commit against the little Horus, and in so doing, unwittingly confessed self-awareness of his own immorality. This development influenced the panel of divine judges arbitrating the domestic dispute for rights to the Egyptian throne to decide in Horus's favour. And it was all, of course, because of the great Isis, the cunning Isis. Now, evident is that Isis achieved all that she put her mind to, including things that seem beyond her acquired sphere of skills and talents. As Ra's immediate neighbour, Isis knew precisely what times the famous solar barge was out and about, as well as his lesser-known diurnal transformations. Isis knew nearly everything. Come morning, he would appear as a blonde, blue-eyed cherub with the skin texture of an infant and the vitality of a bottlenose dolphin. Then at noon he would grow into a veiny, muscle-bound warrior with ash-blonde facial hair and a vain disposition to match. Finally, the purple, pink, and red brows of dusk would greet the god as he stumbled about like an impoverished beggar, drooling and slobbering everywhere. An old, wrinkled, and grey-bearded man with a twisted staff, who was in no way comparable to the vigour and spiritedness of morning. One afternoon, Isis ventured out along the known path that Ra travelled and collected minute quantities of his dribble into a glass vial, intending to use it against him. Returning to her subterranean operations room, she combined this with iron globules in an alembic to create a reagent, and muttered a powerful magical incantation, coagulated the roasting mass into a tricoloured serpent with the deadliest venom. She returned to the same spot late that night and dropped the serpent amidst marshes beside the unpaved path. So she had set a trap. The following day, Ra set out on his diurnal journey, oblivious, of course, of the tragedy that was about to unfold. No sooner had he passed the marshes, the black snake rushed out and fastened itself to his right thigh, A harrowing cry reverberated through space as the fangs sunk in, changing the air vibrations as to almost blow the eardrums of all celestial and earthly inhabitants. The gods and goddesses were able to trace the distress call to its origin. When they arrived, Ra was huddled against a monolith, cradling his wound and sobbing uncontrollably. With bloodshot eyes, he explained to them that the venom had come from an extraterrestrial-looking serpent whose inherent nature was completely closed off to his probing mind. There was no way of healing himself without this bit of knowledge. Naturally, Isis had witnessed the entire spectacle and judged that it was time to make a move. She ventured outside with a feigned look of sympathy and pity, kneeling beside him and taking him in her arms. "O mighty Ra, Lord of the heavens and the earth, I know the serpent that bit you. Tell me your name, your unknown name, and I will restore you to health." At this point, it occurs to Ra that the whole thing might be an evil machination set in motion at the behest of Isis. Was there any way around the dilemma? Perhaps the best reaction under such circumstances would be to try to fool her in return, he told himself. He proceeded to prattle off a chain of qualitatively connected epithets like moulder of the mountains and maker of the bull for the cow in order to bring sexual pleasure into being. However, the austere glance these were met with was enough assurance that she had not taken the bait. "None of these are your secret name, your true name," she advanced. The game of cat and mouse went on, to Ra's detriment, for he grew weaker and weaker. He was sweating profusely, convulsing and vomiting, and finally came under the dreaded spell of a deathly languor. Acutely aware that he would lose the battle should the deception continue, Ra finally gave in. He leaned across and whispered it into her ear, adding that she should swear never to reveal it to another living soul save for her son Horus. Isis gave her word, and subsequently uttered a spell to restore Ra to his former healthy state. The inhabitants of heaven and earth rejoiced, for once again their master could take up his mantle of duties and traverse the blue skies in his solar barge, infusing everything with love and light. From that moment on, Isis, great of magic, great of might, was known as Mistress of the Gods who knows Ra by his own name. And that concludes the story of Isis and the Sun God's secret name. I hope you enjoy that. See you next time.